Aloha, everybody. Hi there. Welcome to our training on, I'm going to be teaching you 3 neurohacks to help transform you from stressed hot mess to cool, calm, conscious CEO of your life and business. Um, I don't know about you guys, but I have definitely had my moments of losing my cool, right? We all have. We're human. It's just human nature. And so what I want to teach you today, this will be actually a little bit of a shorter training than usual, but I'm going to teach you basically 3 neurohacks that are going to elevate your emotional intelligence to explode your success as a parent, a partner, and a professional so that you can, right? And this is really what we want, so that you can remain cool and calm and collected rather than lose your shit in a stressful situation. And we're going to do this by essentially, I want to teach you how to activate your soothing system of your body to proactively reduce stress, right? We want to be proactive, not reactive. I mean, we can use these neurohacks and these tools reactively, but actually what my embodied paradise method teaches is to be proactive in this process, right? So we're going to learn some strategies to activate our soothing system so that we can proactively reduce our stress and rewire our nervous system for safety, for calm, for expansion, right? And that's one of the things we're going to learn today. The second thing is I want to talk a little bit about how to replace anxious perfectionism with sort of more wise and balanced thinking so that you can make more bold, brave decisions with ease and essentially operate at the top of your game, right? That's what we want as the elite CEO of your life and your business. And to be honest, so many women that I work with struggle with this. And I'll be honest, I myself have struggled with this. I think those of us who are high performing women that are high achieving, ambitious, driven, motivated, we tend to be overthinkers. We tend to be overworkers. We tend to be overcommitted, right? We struggle. And big one, we tend to be did I say overgivers? We tend to be overgivers, right? And so many of us struggle with these things. And honestly, I created this women's wellness circle, this space, because so many of my therapy clients, so many of the women that I specialize with and work with are struggling with the 5 or 4 things I just named: overgiving, overthinking, overdoing, overcommitting, overworking, all the things, right? And we want to be able to reframe, to start to learn how to consciously reframe some of our thinking. And then the last piece is that we want to be able to like elevate our income, well, both our income, but also our impact, right? And I'm a very impact driven person, to be honest, more than income. But I think we all want both, right? We want to make impact and income. But the way we're going to do that, and the key, and this is what so many people miss, is that we have to learn how to transform from survival mode, right? From fight or flight, freeze or fawn mode to safety mode. And we do that through elite embodiment. We do that through these practices that I am, a couple of which I'm going to teach you today, that really help to bring you home to your highest and your wisest self, right? And the goal then of that is so that you can essentially take action, right? Be able to be an action taker, but rather than from a place of like being a hot mess, right? Doing that from a place of complete clarity, from calm, and from elevated confidence. And so I'm going to take a moment, right? I see a couple of you guys watching. Drop, if you will, I want to do a quick check-in on a scale of 1 to 10 of emotional regulation. If 10 is like losing your shit, you're like a hot mess, right? And 1 is cool and calm as a cucumber. Where are you right now in this moment? And just drop your number and let us know where you're at, right? And Lori, I love you. Lori said a 10. I'm only laughing because I've so been there and I just know and appreciate you. Okay, you were kidding. You said you're a 5. Wonderful. Well, so I want us to think about, right? Like, what are the things that take us from a 5 and above? And then what are the things that keep us like a 5 and under? What are the practices that we use? And I can't tell you how many women I talk to when I ask them, what do you do to self-regulate? What do you do to take care of yourself so that you're not losing your shit? And often I get a blank stare. Or sometimes I'll get a couple things that they do, um, but there's not many tools in their toolkit, right? So I'm going to teach you, this is the one of the simplest neuro hacks that you can have in your tool belt, which you can teach your children, you can teach your partner, you can utilize it at any moment. And it's actually one you may have heard before, but I'm going to explain the why behind it. And I think when you understand the why, it can change the game for you because you see the value of it. So the first neuro hack that I want you to know is what Dan Siegel, who is a very well known and respected psychologist, researcher, he's written a lot of books on this subject, what he calls name it to tame it. He coined that term. And what basically we mean by name it to tame it is we want to be able to name what we are feeling in the moment, right? The emotion that we are experiencing, so that we can shift out of our stressed out survival brain, right? That like primal part of our brain, and actually shift into safety, right? Shift into like rather, so I think the simplest way to do this is I'm just gonna run through the hand model of the brain because I honestly feel like this is kind of game changing to understand. So imagine if your hand was your brain, right? And the lower half, the bottom half of your brain is like the primitive survival function or part of the brain. It's like your brainstem, your limbic system. This is the thumb that's sort of tucked in is really your limbic system or your amygdala. That's the part of you that processes anger, fear, aggression, intense emotion, right? Like guilt, shame, like all these really intense things. The brainstem is responsible for all of the automatic survival functions of the body, heart rate, breathing, um, temperature regulation, like all of these sort of survival things that we don't think about, right? And if you imagine that like your knuckles that are curled around the top of your thumb, if this is responsible for, that's your prefrontal cortex, responsible for our ability to regulate ourself. It's responsible for planning, judgment, decision making, executive functioning, the ability to like execute tasks, the ability to sustain attention. It does so many important functions. And oh, it's our impulse control. That's a big one, right? So what happens is that often when we lose our shit, we do what he calls, what Dan Siegel calls flipping our lid. We literally, it's like our upstairs brain just becomes disconnected. It's like he calls it amygdala hijack. It's like that emotional center of the brain hijacks the nervous system and takes over, which is why when you get really stressed out or worked up or emotional, you start hyperventilating, you start sweating, right, your breathing increases, your heart rate, all the things elevate. And what's happening is literally you're in amygdala hijack. And so the trick is we have to practice getting our upstairs brain connected again, back online with the downstairs brain. And so some of these tricks that I'm going to teach you today, these hacks, are going to help to get the upstairs and the downstairs brain talking to one another, because this is our rational brain. This is our irrational brain. Downstairs brain, irrational. Upstairs brain, rational, logical, right? And so in the moments when we lose our shit, we are very much in our downstairs brain. When we're in a moment of being like cool, calm, collected, I can talk to you and I can, resolve conflict with you and I can, speak calmly, all the things, we're in the upstairs brain. So what we want, this is a really simple science-backed technique that you can use to literally calm your spiraling thoughts or your intense emotions, right? Whatever those are. And what we do is we literally just label the emotion. We name it to tame it. We what we the science piece behind it is that as we actually start to identify intense emotions, right, naming the emotion actually has the effect of reducing our stress and anxiety significantly. It tames the brain, literally, and the body. That whatever that emotion has like riled up within you, just naming it out loud has the effect of calming your nervous system. It gets the upstairs brain back online. And so there are a lot of ways to do this, right? So not only does this give you sort of like in the moment relief when we name the emotion, right? We state how we're feeling at this moment, right? But also it strengthens our capacity over time to be with big emotions, really intense emotions. Rather than getting swept up in the emotion, we can learn how to be with it, how to observe it, how to self-distance, which I'm going to teach you a hack to self-distance from the emotion, right? And So I want to ask you just to take a moment and to like check in with yourself and just drop whatever feeling you are experiencing, or emoji if you want to go emoji, that's great too. But like, what are you feeling in this moment? Let's take a moment to identify, to label, to name your emotions in this moment, right? And there's lots of ways to do this. A lot of people stick with sort of the basic like six emotions, the universal emotions. Um, but I really encourage my clients. I challenge my clients to go deeper than that, to use like a feelings wheel, to use what I call what's a mood meter, which is something that I teach about in my 90-day program. It's part of the Ruler Center for Yale Center for Emotional Intelligence. But basically, it's a tool that you can use that helps you to name and to get really specific in naming your emotion. Oh, Lori, I love it. You're feeling blissful and relieved. Wonderful, right? So when we can identify that, literally our nervous system starts to calm down. And confident, look at you, I love it. Okay, good. So let me see if there's anything else I wanted to share about this. No, I think I shared a lot of, so tell me if you have any questions as I go through some of these, right? But that is like the simplest hack. Name it to tame it. And if you can teach your children, and you guys, like this is something that I am really working on with my 4-year-old, is giving him language for his emotions, right? How many of your kids lose it for like no apparent reason? My child does it all the time. But the more that we can give them language for what they're feeling, they start to actually feel more regulated. When my son can tell me, Mom, I'm frustrated, that's very different than him grunting or throwing something or kicking something, right? Because in those moments when he's like lashing out, he's not regulated, he's dysregulated. In the moments when he is able to use language to tell me his emotional experience, he's in his prefrontal cortex and he's calmer, he's regulated, right? So simple. But that's our first neuro hack. Name it to tame it. The second one, which is a little more complex, is really like the second pillar of my embodied paradise method. Um, Also, I just realized I totally forgot to introduce myself. Hi, everybody. I'm Sarah. I know many of you that are watching this, but I just wanted to share that I am my background a little bit. I'm a licensed therapist, licensed clinical social worker. I'm a registered yoga teacher. I'm an elite embodiment coach. I was a high school counselor and psychology teacher for about 12 years. And so my love of this stuff, like I taught this for a long time, but the more that I have moved myself now into a like private practice and opening up my wellness business, this is the stuff that I really see women getting stuck in, and this is why I love to teach it. So the second neuro hack, and this is part of my embodied paradise method, the second pillar is to do what I call conscious reframing, to practice conscious reframing. And what that means is that we learn to notice and observe without judgment our anxious overthinking, our judgmental mind, right? Because that judgmental mind is what contributes to assumptions, it contributes to stereotyping, it contributes to prejudice, it contributes to violence, right? And so when we can start to name our feelings, when we can start to reframe the negative self-talk, the anxious overthinking, when we learn how to actually identify and then reframe it, it is game changing, you guys. It is game changing. So I want to just teach you about something that is an error. It's a psychology term that many of us struggle with as human beings. It's called the fundamental attribution error. Basically, what that means is that this is like a common sort of cognitive distortion or thought error where we as humans tend to attribute other people's behavior to who they are, to their character, to their disposition, their personality, as opposed to their circumstances. Like, in other words, we jump to blaming people for who they are and assuming things about who they are, as opposed to trying to empathize and imagine their circumstances, imagine what's happening to them, right? So like you're driving down the road, somebody swerves in front of you, immediately we tend to jump to like crazy driver, and then we sometimes throw in like these stereotypical crazy female driver, crazy this driver, whatever, right? But who knows what's going on for that person? I mean, maybe they're sick or ill, or maybe they just got in a really big argument with their partner. Maybe who knows why they're driving erratically, right? But we tend to jump to these assumptions. So part of conscious reframing is one, noticing your thinking, noticing what's happening up here, starting to identify. And I tell my clients to make a list of their anxious thoughts, of the negative self-talk, like what are some of the things that you replay over and over again in your mind, right? And feel free, of course, to drop any in the comment if you are open to sharing. I think many of us struggle with similar negative self-talk, core limiting beliefs, right? So a lot of this is that we have to learn how to reframe these cognitive distortions that cause us to like mind read other people, assume we know what they're thinking about us, or fortune tell, predict the future, think we know what's going to happen in the future, and I see this a lot, right? And we have to learn how to reframe it and to replace it with empathy and compassion. And when you learn how to observe your irrational thinking from that place of non-judgment, right, you can actually start to catch it and then separate yourself from it. And empathy is one of the best ways to activate your prefrontal cortex, to get your upstairs brain back online. Because when you're in a moment of anxious, judgmental overthinking, you're in your downstairs brain. You're in the emotional, irrational part of the brain, right? And so when we can start to put ourselves in another person's shoes, empathize with what they're experiencing, how they're feeling, what's going on with them, right? That engages the prefrontal cortex, and that gets our upstairs brain back online, and that gets us out of anxious overthinking. Okay, so I'm going to give you also another hack, and then Lori, I'm going to come back to your comment because I haven't had a chance to read it, but such a great hack. So I teach my clients to actually name the emotional part of their brain. Name your downstairs brain, right? I have clients that call it Judgy Judy. I have clients that call it, gosh, so many names. Oh, Angry Amy was one for amygdala, angry amygdala, right? Like whatever you want to call it, it doesn't matter. You can even just give it a name of someone, I don't want to say someone you don't like, but like a name that you dislike, right? Because that's representing the irrational, emotional part of yourself. And so when we do that, when we name that part of ourself, we can self-distance from that negative, irrational part of us, right? We can somewhat distance from the negative self-talk. So my clients often will talk to me and they'll say, oh, well, Angry Amy told me this, and Judgy Judy said that. And, we talk about it from this place of like, well, that's not really you, because that's not really you, who you are, right? That's just like the part of you that's very irrational and emotional, and that's not your best self. And so, that's a great technique, really simple. I want to read, Lori, your comment here. Lori said, you were just thinking that you're great at naming your big feelings, but you've never have had anything but big feelings. I appreciate that about you. But accepting your feelings, yeah, and not judging is the big thing. I agree. And that's the part. So that's the piece about my second pillar about conscious reframing, is learning how to witness it without judgment, right? But you said that accepting your feelings, not judging is the big thing, and not judging. Oh, and I don't jump to assumptions about others' behavior, but about your own. Well, and that's so true. With the fundamental attribution error applies to us too. Like, in other words, sometimes we immediately jump to self-blame, right? And so you said, are they reacting like this, or are they doing this because I XYZ? Yeah, 100%. And Lori, you're not alone in that. I think a lot of people, again, that's human nature. That's what this fundamental attribution error says, because that's actually how our brain is wired. Like, it is wired for self-preservation. It's wired for survival. So in a moment when we are feeling threatened, or we're perceiving a threat, even in the absence of a threat, we immediately go into Judgy Judy, anxious, angry, what did I say? Angry Amy, right? Like that overthinking emotional part of the brain takes over. And that's where amygdala hijack happens. And that is why we have to learn strategies and hacks to get that upstairs brain back online. So essentially, empathy is one way to do that, right? Being able to put yourself in someone else's shoes literally activates mirror neurons in the prefrontal cortex, so that these are the neurons that start firing when you are literally like mirroring another person's emotions, mirroring another person's facial expressions. When we're putting ourselves in their shoes, that part of the brain starts firing. And that, again, then we start thinking more rationally, more logically. We're able to get out of like the heated conflict. Um, so that's really like our second hack. Now, I do want to say if you're in a conflict, right? You're not, it's very difficult to get that upstairs brain online. If your heart rate is elevated above like a 100 beats per minute, you're not going to be able to access that prefrontal cortex. And so this is why the first pillar of my embodied paradise method is actually learning how to calm the body, learning how to basically shift out of that survival state into safety mode. And this is where then my third pillar, the elite embodiment practices, they really utilize the practice of radical self-love as a way to elevate your confidence, as a way to, like, once we are able to create safety in the body, right? And we do that, we have to do that through the breath, we have to do that through all kinds of different elite embodiment practices, restorative yoga, yoga nidra, like there's a lot of different methods that I use. But I'm going to teach you a really simple one, our third neuro hack, that brings you back to yourself, that brings you back home to your highest and wisest self, really back online to that prefrontal cortex. And this one is really simple too. So like this is honestly, again, the simplest technique that I teach my clients is the difference between chest breathing and belly breathing, right? When we are chest breathing, we're in shallow survival breath versus belly breathing, right? So if you put one hand on your chest and one hand on your belly, notice the difference. If you close your eyes, take 3 breaths into the chest and just notice what that feels like. The shallow breath, right? Versus breathe all the way into the belly. Fill the belly like a balloon and then release it. It's like night and day difference. And the reason that it's a night and day difference, and I would encourage you to take 3 more of those, right? To use the belly breathing. And this is such a simple tool that you can teach your kids too, or your partner, or yourself, or whatever. But if you can activate that belly breath, what's going to happen is that literally with each, so as we inhale, right? Our body is literally filling with air, which is amazing. But then what happens is as we release the breath, there's a nerve that runs through the diaphragm. It's called the vagus nerve. When we exhale, our diaphragm releases, and that stimulates this vagus nerve that innervates it, that runs through it. And the vagus nerve goes all the way up to the brain. Belly breathing, Erica, is a lifesaver. Oh my gosh, thank you for that. It totally is. And when we learn how to, so as we exhale, the vagus nerve gets stimulated, sends a message up to the brain, to the upstairs brain, in fact, and it actually slows the downstairs brain. It gets the survival brain quieting. So the sympathetic nervous system starts to slow, and the parasympathetic nervous system and the upstairs brain, that prefrontal cortex, comes online, and all of a sudden we feel calmer, we feel like kind of collected, we feel relaxed a little bit, we might start to yawn, but we all of a sudden can start to think logically, we can start to think rationally. Like it's a night and day difference. It's huge. And so that is one of the biggest things that you can actually do for yourself, even at nighttime. Like if you're struggling with insomnia, for example, just go into belly breathing, 2 hands on the belly, and I just take really deep inhales and exhales, right? So simplest way, make your inhale breath equal to your exhale breath, just to start, right? Inhale for 4, exhale for 4, inhale for 5, exhale for 5. You can go all the way up to 8. Inhale for 8, exhale for 8. But if you want to take it a step further to what really actually starts to get the upstairs brain more online, you want to elongate the exhalation, right? So maybe you do inhale for 4, exhale for 6, or inhale for 6, exhale for 8. Whatever works for you. You like play with it and see what numbers feel good in your body. For some people, holding their breath for a long time is not comfortable, right? Or a longer exhalation feels uncomfortable. So you do you, like whatever works for you. But the idea is that we're creating safety in the body. And in doing that, that is literally what will get your upstairs brain back online, that will get you from that stressed hot mess state to being cool and calm as a cucumber, right? And really being able to regulate yourself. And this is something I should mention, like for children, for example, or teenagers, like their upstairs brain, their prefrontal cortex is not fully developed till they're like 25. So it's really unrealistic for me to expect that my 4-year-old is like somehow going to be able to like regulate himself at all times. It's just not realistic. However, I can be his model. I can remind him. We do belly breathing at night sometimes, especially when he's having trouble breathing, and he's working on it, right? Like it's not excellent yet, but we're getting there. But it's huge. And especially for teenagers, they get it a lot more than a 4-year-old, right? So I mean, just to tell you guys, like back when I was teaching at the school that I was at, I created like a restorative yoga studio where we did restorative yoga, we did yoga nidra, and these are practices that essentially slow the sympathetic nervous system, activate the parasympathetic nervous system. We kind of rest in these amazing, juicy reclined poses and hold them for a long time, which really calms the body. And I created this little space. I mean, it was literally like a nook in the library where these kids could come. And I can't even tell you, like we were full quite often. And these were like very high achieving kids who recognize the value of being able to take like 20 minutes before their math test to calm themselves down, right? Like imagine if more of us had access to that. So, you can do this in so many different ways. But the third neurohack that I want to teach you is the practice of radical self-love, right? It is actually an elite embodiment practice that helps you to embody your highest and wisest self. This is truthfully why I created my radical self-love cards and my affirmation cards. And I pulled one today that, since we're talking about getting out of the survival brain into more of like our upstairs safety brain, the one that I pulled today is one that I just love this one. And to be honest, I use this and have used this for a long time whenever fear starts to creep in. Whenever like I notice that I'm starting to get into a place that's not good for me and I start to feel unsafe in any way, whether that be physically, mentally, emotionally, like whatever's going on for me in that moment. And this is my mantra that I love. So you have to find what works for you, but this is it. I am safe. I am loved. I am protected. I am safe. I am loved. I am protected. Erica, you actually get, I love that you said you want to purchase these. Thank you. But I have to tell you, you posted a what was it? A testimonial from the recalibration retreat. And so you actually, I haven't done it yet, and so I apologize, but you are going to get these cards in the mail. I need your address. But these are coming to you free as a gift from me, as a thank you for that beautiful testimonial. But they are available for purchase. And I have to tell you guys, they make excellent stocking stuffers. I will be definitely doing like a BOGO sale on these as we get closer to the holidays. But these are so beautiful. And I would encourage you guys to really like, often I'll just sort of come back to one hand on the chest, one hand on the heart, one hand on the heart, one hand on the belly, which this in and of itself is calming to the nervous system, right? But then when we pair that with a mantra that really resonates or an affirmation that resonates, right? I am safe, I am loved, I am protected. There's like a deep sigh that happens, this deep exhale. And that is what is going to help you get your upstairs brain back online. Yeah. And so that is part of, again, that's why I created these. Literally, I found myself saying the same things over and over again to the women that I was working with. And I was like, I'm just going to create some cards for them because I want them to have a tangible reminder of what can be, just forefront of our mind. Yeah. And so they're beautiful. And what's cool about them too is that there are these like blank reflection cards at the end where you can write your own. So you can sort of, go through these and see what resonates, but then you can write the ones that resonate most for you. So I hope you enjoy that. I wanted to just give you a moment though. I thought we could do a very quick, like maybe 2-minute, radical self-love practice. Just a quick elite embodiment practice. So wherever you are, as long as you're not driving and you're somewhere safe and you can close the eyes for just a moment, I'm going to invite you to just place one hand on your heart, one hand on the belly. Start to just notice the breath. Let's go ahead and take 3 belly breaths. Breathing in for a count of 4. breathing out for a count of 4. And just being here for a few moments, just as you continue inhaling at whatever pace feels good for you, exhaling at whatever pace feels good. You might inhale for a count of 6 and exhale for a count of 6. And now inhale, let's breathe in for a count of 8. And exhale when you're ready for that same count of 8. And on the next inhale, just mentally repeat the word I. And exhale, mentally repeat the word am. I, as you inhale, am as you exhale. And let's do that a few times, just being with those words, I am. Notice what's coming up, if anything, for you, how you're feeling in this moment. As you mentally repeat I with each inhale, and as you exhale, mentally repeat am. And just feel your body, right? With each inhalation and with each exhalation, feel the safety within your body, right? So imagine that like we're breathing in safety as we mentally inhale and repeat I, and exhale and repeat am. And as we do this, let's go ahead and repeat that mantra that I shared with you. As you inhale, repeat, I am safe, I am loved, I am protected. And then feel your body exhale. Feel the release, feel the relief that comes. Any fear, any limiting beliefs, anything that's there, just let it go. Any stress that's remaining, just release it with the exhale breath. Deepen that exhale breath so that it's almost audible, so you can hear it in the back of the throat, so you can hear it through the ears. I am safe, I am loved, I am protected. And just sit with those words, sit with that, be with that. Notice what comes up for you. As you inhale, you might, again, just imagine that you're breathing in safety into the body. And as you exhale, breathe out gratitude, breathe out expansion. And notice how you feel. It's that simple, right? We can make this longer. We could go on with this, but it's that simple. I'd love to notice just anything that's come up for you guys or any way that you're feeling. If you want to share, you can stay right here. You can keep the eyes closed. If you feel ready, you can release the hands. You can type a comment, share how you're feeling in this moment. And I'd also love to check in, right, on that same scale, 1 to 10, our, what did I call it? Like our sort of scale of emotional regulation, right? If 10 is kind of like on that scale, losing your shit, and 1 is cool and calm as a cucumber, where are you right now? After that elite embodiment practice, that radical self-love, just like 2 minutes of being in the breath, 2 minutes of using our radical self-love affirmation. What's coming up for you? Where are you? Right? Beautiful. I love it, Erica. You're at a 2. So if this speaks to you guys, if you are longing to learn more neurohacks to increase your emotional intelligence, to increase your, self-regulation, just comment neurohacks below in the comments. Just put neurohacks and I will reach out to you. And Oh, Caroline, I love that. Serenity 101. Exactly. Yes. Um, But if you want to learn more, if you want to dive deeper into this stuff, I would be thrilled to connect with you. We can hop on a free 20-minute call. We can see kind of what you're needing, what's working for you, what's not, where are the gaps. We'll see if my embodied paradise method can support you and how it could fill the gaps for you in your wellness practices. And really, the goal is to just help you elevate into that elite version of yourself, right? To embody the elite within you. Um, and so in my experience, my clients who use these practices, who really embody and use these neuro hacks, they are able to start to live a more joyful and abundant and self-actualized life. They are elevating to a place where they feel like the calm, cool, conscious, confident CEO of their life and their business. And it's not hard. It's just that we have to learn how to really optimize our own nervous system and learn how our brain and our body work so that we can operate really at more elite levels. And so again, if this is something you want to learn more about, if it sounds interesting to you, to learn how to create your own personal paradise, to learn more about conscious reframing, and to really like immerse yourself in more elite embodiment practices. These are things that will really help you to create more authentic presence with others within your relationships, to create fulfillment for you in your life, and meaning really in your daily experience. Just drop the word neurohacks below and I will reach out to you and we can connect. So I so appreciate you guys tuning in today. Thank you so much. And I hope you have a beautiful Aloha Friday. Thanks, everybody.